Hi there, I'm Candice Jenkins. I'm Head of Audit at Johannesburg, and I saw an interesting post on LinkedIn the other day about a 4-day work week. And I have in studio with me today David, who will share his insights of why he thinks the 4-day work week is a good idea. So on that note, David, if you can tell me, what do you think about a 4-day work week? And I have a few follow-up questions on that.
I look forward to discussing the topic with you, and thanks for having me. I think the 4-day work week has a really bad reputation. I think it's a buzzword and concept that's been thrown around and is fundamentally misunderstood in terms of the value it can bring to people and businesses alike. It's something I'm personally really dedicated to achieving for Mikilu, which is a marketing agency, but haven't achieved yet. So overarching, like, leading statements, it's not easy.
I think on my end, and where I've wanted to implement something like this, is on top performers. So when you are performing, why not have a Friday off? And I think the problem with that is that we are in a high-performing environment, very client-centric, and there are a few views within the industry that we find ourselves in is that it is very time-pressed. So, we do change the norm, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, because it's not just about time, it's about the service that we provide. So I don't know if you have any comments on that.
So I'd separate out what you're talking about is incentivizing staff with a day off. That's not a 4-day work week. So you're part of the problem creating the bad rep for the 4-day work week. But you're touching on where some of the magic really lies, which is what is, and this is industry specific, but what is your business really about, and what are your clients really doing business with you for? And again, this concept wouldn't work for everyone. Like, you're not going to see call centers going to a 4-day work week. Like that would wreak havoc. But for many businesses, and I think your industry is really interesting because correct me if I'm wrong, but it's extremely time-based. The measure from clients and from staff within a business revolves around this timesheet that I think gives everyone anxiety and doesn't evoke any excitement in anybody. And people become obsessed with that concept of time and the timesheet and how long did you. And I just think that focus is entirely wrong. And what I believe people employ our company for as a marketing agency, and what people would work with, more for, audit advisory and many other things. It's a more complex offering than ours, is for value in a specific area, in a specific discipline. And I think when one starts to challenge themselves as a business and their people to start defining, and this is where this process really starts, what does value look like? How do we drive value? How is it measured? Once you do that, you then have a completely different ecosystem of things that you're looking at as opposed to a timesheet. But that concept, to divorce the concept of time in exchange for value, although everyone talks about it and everyone says it, they don't fundamentally do it because it's like, well, why would we? So 4-day work week it's a massive change in philosophy, and it's a shift of concept for businesses, and that's where they come unhinged. What most people are doing with a 4-day work week is we want to do it as an incentive to our to our staff. We want to do it as a differentiator. We want to do it because no one else is doing it, and if we do it, staff will be more inclined to want to come and work with us. Fail. Don't even bother. Is that resonating? Is that connecting with you at any level?
On our end, many years ago, we did away with the timesheets because
Really?
I think it is
across the whole business.
Across the whole business. We still need for our trainees for them to record their time because they're core competencies that need to be reached, but they don't need to complete a timesheet across the business because we changed our focus around that it is not time-centric, it's the service that we're providing. Having said that, though, clients will still come back to us and say, show us the time spent. And that is the difficult thing, is because the environment that we find ourselves in and just the way that business has always been run is always time-based. So we're always restricted by that. There are a few things, though, that I did want to talk through when you spoke about timesheets and are we there to deliver a service. And 100% we are, but our clients, they have tight deadlines. And if we had to bring in a 4-day work week, what does that look like? Does it mean that those staff need to then do 10-hour days to catch up the time that they have off on a Friday? Because there's so much time that's allocated in a very short period of time for them to get those audits over the line. So if I just knocked off an 8-hour Friday for them, what does that mean for their getting over getting the audit done?
And that's the point, is you have to ask those questions and you have to solve for those problems, because I'm not going to give you a one-liner of like, oh, that's easy, you just do this. It isn't easy. And we haven't achieved a 4-day work week yet ourselves. I'll come back to that in a moment. I just want to quickly ask, you said you moved away from timesheets a while ago. When you did, what was that like? Was that like from this day onwards, there'll be no more timesheets and it's being replaced by? What did that look like operationally?
I think because we had been in the business for so long, we understood what value was to our clients when we were doing an audit. So yes, when we do budgets and all of those good things, obviously we know how long an assignment's going to take. So we still have to cost it by time.
Okay.
But we knew that we could get the job done in 3 weeks and we knew what that cost should look like. And that was the value that we had driven. The admin burden behind it was for a clerk to go and sit there and record their time. Like, that's nonsensical. Get the job done. And that's how we, because everyone then came back to us and said, yeah, but how are you tracking productivity? Well, did I get those financial statements to the clients after that 3-week period? 100%. You'll very, very quickly pick out who the slow performers are within the business.
And then obviously quality is another measure, but there's systems in place for that already.
Absolutely.
Was that communicated to clients? And if so, how was it received, out of interest?
So like I said, there's still clients that come back and say, can you please share the time that was spent on that engagement? And then we can share the budgets. And also remember that we know how long certain sections take, and we have to manage, because time is so valuable and so short within an engagement, is that we have audit trackers. So as much as we don't complete timesheets, we know that if you have overruns within a certain section, on a weekly basis, we know where that lies. So if there was an issue with a specific section, we would be able to then engage with the client to say, well, actually, it didn't take us 3 days, it took us 2 weeks. There's some cost overruns, and we're able to then manage that.
And so is there an example of a client that heard this concept and received it positively? Like, that's good to hear.
So we never communicated this to clients because I don't think it really matters to a lot of clients, because a lot of the clients that work with us.
It doesn't actually matter. If you don't make it a thing and the focal point, there's a handful that are running around asking for timesheets, and you deal with them as the exception, not as the rule. And that's kind of the point. And we had a similar experience in terms of not a lot of what we do, coincidentally, is time-based, and the model historically has also been built based on time. Yeah. And we made a shift away, communicated in some instances, in others it wasn't. And no one really cared. It was like, it was a non-event. And it's just like that burden that you bear was completely pointless. But those things are different. So that's interesting that it was similar.
I think one of the other things that I'd like to touch on is the kind of person that we employ. I did touch on that a little bit. So, not leaving tomorrow's work or today's work for tomorrow, I think is something like having that anxiety because you haven't got through the work that you needed to do. So imagine carrying that anxiety from a Thursday afternoon to Monday because you haven't got to it. So that's something that I want to talk about. And then obviously being client-centric, when a client does email you on a Friday and you don't respond immediately, because we have a policy within our firm that you would respond within a 24-hour period. Clients don't want to wait for Monday.
Sure.
They want to know that you're responsive today.
Yeah. And those are the things that need... Those are the easy hurdles that need to be leapt over to make this thing come to fruition. And I think it should be quite liberating for people to know that that's all you need to solve. And there's lots of room and there's lots of flexibility to get around that. So I'm going to go a few steps back on purpose. I could have led with this, but I wasn't going to, which is like where the 4-day work week actually came from. Like, why do I give a damn about it? Because it's very personal. Like, it's not something that was brought up at a exco and debated because someone saw it somewhere. It's my cross to bear. And it's upon reflecting on a very long ride from Cape Town to Knysna, dealing with my annual meltdown of the year's pressure catching up with me. I specifically went on this ride to go and figure out
find yourself.
Purpose. Yeah, exactly. Which people do in different ways. Mine was to go and ride on my own unplanned and see how far I could get. I actually wanted to get to Jeffreys Bay, so I failed by that measure. But whatever. The point at the end of that, when I was sitting at what is that? The heads, overlooking at the heads, and I had loads of time to reflect from a really dark place, literally and figuratively and spiritually. The thing that dawned on me is if this is what I'm feeling, which was a lot of different things, anxiety, pressure, and the usual stuff that 99.9% of people all know, all deal with every single day, barely talk about. I was like, if this is what I'm feeling, imagine what everyone else is feeling in the business. And we don't talk about this. It's not a thing in our business. And that was the starting point of the 4-day work week, which is fundamentally, I feel obliged, compelled, driven to make sure that the people that work at Mickey Lou are the happiest human beings in the world. Just because. Not because I want differentiator, not because productivity, not because of anything, but because as a human, I want them to be happy.
And did you feel that the 4-day work week would make them happy?
Rolling down that road. So I then started to think for myself, as I think a lot of business owners do, what would the perfect, I'm a dreamer. I was like, what would the perfect week look like? It's like, I really enjoy exercising in the morning. And what I really want to do after that is hang out with the most adorable little 6-month-old you've ever seen in your life. And I want to have enough time to have coffee and breakfast with my significant other. And then I want to go to work and I want to dominate at work. I want to work. That's another misconception. This
4-day work week for lazy people. You must be lazy.
And at the end of that day, I want to be able to, get home at a reasonable time, to go and do a walk with my wife and the kids, have dinner at a relatively early hour and be in bed by 8. So I worked out the perfect week. And yes, it'd be lekker to have a Friday off and go and do a long ride or whatever.
A weekend away.
Weekend away, or even just that day off to go and do whatever. It would normally be something activity related. I was like, okay, why just me? How can that become a reality for everyone else? Because business. If you did that, I'll start to wrap up my story and get to the point. If you did that, if I achieved that for myself, I know I'd be really happy. I'd have loads of time with my family. I'd have loads of time with my hobbies that are healthy things. And the David that rocks up for the hours and the days that I'm at work is fundamentally better, sharper, more creative, more engaged, all those things. And I already, in terms of my personal time, I understand what my deliverables are in a week, in a month, in a quarter, in a year. And they're not time-based. I'm driven by certain results. And if I achieve those results, I do this really weird thing. If I know what I need to do for the day, I then also know when I can stop.
Yeah.
I can get to 3, 4 o'clock in the day and I can stop because I've done what I needed to do. And I can, with no anxiety, go away and go and be present. That might be at 1 p.m. That might be a whole Friday. So that is achievable. But if you don't have a clearly defined measure of this is what success looks like. And when I say for me, it's for my clients. I'm extremely client-centric. I hate losing. I hate not delivering. I hate us not being the best. Those things irk me deeply. But that has to be measurable. Those are just concepts. Those are just words.
Yeah.
Being the best means I delivered 5 leads last year for the whole of March. Success looks like 8. hypothetically. It is more complex than that. But if that's defined, then when you achieve that, you've achieved exceptional value, you can stop. You can pause, and you can take, to be able to then know that you can stop and you've achieved something, because people want to feel that. They want that association of I've achieved, I've done it. We deal with ambitious people that are driven. You have to have a measure of that, but they don't. It's just like, what's the next thing? And the next thing. And then people invent and invent and invent, and they carry on and carry on. And then it's like, you leave at 7:00 and you like feel heroic that you've worked this long day, but you go home, you have no time with your wife, no time with your kids. And the net result of all those things, the inherited culture that you, me, and everyone has for years and years and years,
impacts on the business.
It negatively impacts your life. And that negatively impacts your business. That negatively impacts the world. And that's, I'm not saying the whole world go to a 4-day work week and you solve the problems of the world. But that's the misrepresentation of this whole thing, is it's not a gimmick. It's fundamentally making your business value-centric. One, for your staff, not for any reason other than you want them to be happy. Happy people deliver better results than unhappy people.
Absolutely.
So it would be a differentiator, and it would be something that you could use to leverage to get top talents, because who wouldn't want to be a part of that? It's so logical. Like, who doesn't love the idea of that? Okay, so if you can agree to that, and a client, a staff member, an exco team can look at that and say, there is value there. Okay, job one. Job two, which you were alluding to, how? How do we do that? Step one, is our business a business that is value, fundamentally based on value? It is not for everyone. It is not for every industry. If you are servicing cars, there's lots of industries that it isn't relevant to. Like, I haven't taken the time to try and solve every industry. I'm looking after my little world, where it certainly is possible. Box ticked, okay? Then your how becomes very different and very specific. To deal with some of the quick things, if you have defined value, that means that your clients and you both understand what a result looks like. Step one, most people, unbelievably, clients and staff alike, don't really know what they're doing. They know they're doing this thing as part of the job, but they don't know what value looks like, financials, signed, and IFRS compliance, as an example. If you deliver those a week before, hypothetically, if that were possible, I'm now venturing into a field I don't know all the ins and outs of, that's value.
That is value.
It is time-based, but it is also not time-based. If you can deliver that in 4 days, and this is where the innovation comes from, if you challenge your staff to say, we value-focused, not time-focused, what
maybe changes
what
their
it does,
mindset.
not maybe, it does. It forces innovative thinking. So when we paid to deliver results, it completely changes the way staff come into a week. When you say, I want to achieve a 4-day work week, you have to achieve the same results we've always wanted to.
Yeah.
You got 4 days to do it in. And you've only got 6-hour work day. That's the other big caveat.
Probably
I want a
so
6-hour work day. I don't want a 10-hour work day. I want a 6-hour work day, 9 to 3, and a 4-day work week.
Yeah.
Dream job, right? You're not going to get lunch probably.
Yeah.
And you get great coffee. And that's, you're problem solving now for a very happy life. And then what you're sitting and thinking about is, okay, how am I going to do this? Not, let me fill my list with a laundry list of things and time, so that at the end of the week, if Candice asks what I've been doing, I can show my 53 things. No one gives a shit about your 53 things. Did we get it over the line?
Yeah.
Is actually what matters. Now they'll start innovating. You don't even know what will be uncovered, because no one's innovating for that, because there's no incentive to. There's no reason to. It's not a day off every month, whatever. That's not going to force change. Real innovation will come from, we going to achieve this thing. How? And that's, you don't know what you don't know. We have some examples in our own business of where that's been achieved, but then it's as simple and as complex as that.
Yeah, because there are busier time periods.
Fundamentally get better results. I believe that people will seek out those companies that are fundamentally value focused and be like, we want to work with you because you achieve value. No one cares how many days you're working.
Yeah.
If they mail on a Friday, so this is where a lot of it comes in. What if on the Friday? So you could have, we haven't done it, but the general thinking is like, you monitor your mails and we use Slack on a Friday. And if something critical comes in on any day of the week and at any time,
you'd address it. Yeah.
Your business would do that. Many others that are worth their salt would do that. That doesn't go away. But you're not sitting there on Friday, like at your laptop, like the whole day. You're checking your phone every 2 hours, if a client phones you, if a client WhatsApps you, which they would if it was an emergency.
Yeah.
Cool.
They
Then,
would
we agree.
absolutely phone.
We agree that you deal with it. And don't take the piss either. Like an emergency isn't, I can't think of a good one from your industry. I'm not knowledgeable enough on the topic, but you know what I mean?
You don't need your financial statements maybe today. If you promised the client today, well, then best you have
deliver,
given it to
100%.
today. But it can wait till
So
Monday.
I've spoken a hell of a lot, but I hope that articulates my position better. And I think what's so important is the why you want to do it. If the foundation of that is we want to differentiate, give it up. Do the 8-hour, 5-day work week. Don't even bother. But if your why that you're doing this is real and it's fundamental,
I think it's changing people's lives. And I mean, we had Mark Sham at our coffee catch-up last week, Friday, and he actually spoke about happiness. And I think everyone's happiness journey is something that they need to define for themselves. Like you did the whole long ride and found what made you happy and happened to come to the resolution 6 hours of work day and a 4-day work week. And I think that's probably where we would need to start, is that everyone within the business, what is happiness for you from a work perspective? And life obviously happens, and what do you want to achieve from that? So I've had so many conversations since that coffee catch-up, like being able to shut down at 4:00 and go ride your horse. I had a call yesterday with a manager who used to go to gym at 5:00, but now she's opening her laptop at 5. I said, that's got to stop. Like, that is something that you cannot achieve and it's not sustainable. Oliver often says, you can't confuse attendance with performance. And I think that's really, really important concept that we get our head around, because we all suffer from anxiety if I'm not sitting behind my laptop doing something. And it's such a stupid thing that we add anxiety to ourselves on, where if I've been so productive for 6 hours of my day and I'm able to take a step back and go and watch my daughter's netball or go and watch my son play rugby, that is what should be important. And it is something that we are really trying. The 4-day work week for me is something that I still haven't got my head around. But again, you have to be intentional in what you're trying to achieve. And as a business owner, I'm going to need to be the one that drives something like that and drives the process, because I don't think people will just do it on their own. You need to ask the questions and hopefully something comes from that. I mean, it's an exciting thing to achieve. We speak about it at global conferences, and there are firms within the network that are on a 4-day work week. And then everyone's like, what? Well, how have you even achieved that? So I think seeing that it is something that is in the network and people have achieved it means that it's not pie in the sky. It can absolutely be done.
It just has to be, the why is really important. Yeah. It really is. And as a firm that I know is deeply personal, incredibly innovative, and possibly the hardest workers that I know, were you to apply yourselves to this and figure it out,
we would achieve it.
Would bet a scientific calculator that you guys would unlock more value, more growth in areas that you don't even know that are there. And it is exciting. I think it's,
and I think that's
why
on
about like AI and all these things. I was chatting to Brendan. The problem with AI is corporates. I can either use less people to get the same amount done, or I can use the same amount of people and AI to get more done. All it means is it's just more. And it's, what we are as humans, I'd say there's a pretty big movement globally. I don't want to sound like hyper dramatic, but what there is a movement globally that is pushing back to something that has been honed, refined, and shoved down everyone's throats for a very, very, very long period of time. That served a lot of people very, very, very well. And I think people are like, there's no one that I talk to about this that isn't like, obviously, there are people that love to work. But ironically, what I'd land up doing on that Friday would still be work.
I'm one of them. I really love to work.
It would be creative work. It would be would be different. I'd be working on that Friday on something that I don't feel like I have the time with all the noise to during the week. And that would happen. Some people would literally just
Work.
go ghost on a Friday and do nothing. Some might still work, and you've got to be strict with them. But it's the system has been geared for a very long time, and I think it was geared incorrectly for a very long time. And the needs of humans today are fundamentally different. So AI, when people look at it, it's first thing I think is like somewhere in there we have to be able to get an edge on this 4-day work week. Where most people, it's I can get more done, I can grow the revenue more, 10 more clients, 20 more clients, 50 more staff. Like, when is enough enough? And
it's a mechanism for us to achieve it, and it's something that we need to consider. 100%. I agree with you. Okay, so I think maybe just to end it off, I don't know if you've got any other comments on...
When are you going to start your proof of concept?
Yeah, you know me. If I have
Before the end of the year, will you try it?
I will try it. I think you have to. I think what we need to look at is, in a very busy environment, I think people's mental well-being is challenged on another level that we haven't ever seen before. So on my end, it's how do we create happy employees? And that is what I want to achieve. And if it comes with a 4-day work week, it's something that we'll implement.
Well, you're only going to know when you try.
Absolutely.
So I look forward to the findings. Before or after Partners Conference?
Before October. Probably before, so then I can go and
talk about it at Partners
Conference. Talk about it there.
Andy Gallagher could certainly give you a few tips. Like he said, the whole of France has been in a 4-day work week for many, many years.
Exactly.
And they seem to be okay.
Exactly.
I look forward to that feedback. If anyone's going to get it figured out, you'll probably beat me to it.
I will. How long have you been working on it for now?
Too long. At least a year, like focused on it. The business pushes back.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, guy, we're gonna go for it. It's trialing 4-day work week. And it's like, no, don't do it. It's like, what do you mean? Like, you should be jumping and clapping. Like, no, we need the time. So it's like we're fighting. Like, it's a struggle.
It's a change in mind shift.
But yet April rolls around and there's 4-day work weeks, left, right, and center.
And we get
lo and
through
behold, the economy hasn't gone down the tubes.
Absolutely.
So it is possible. But anyway.
So David, thank you for coming in and having this conversation. I think something has to change. I'm excited. It gives me another thing to add on to my list to do. And maybe something that I focus on my Friday, where, it's more innovative thinking and how to change the business. So thank you for your comments.
Pleasure. Thank you. Good luck.